Good afternoon. It is June 28th, 2022, and today we had two measured legs down. Um, I mean, that's what I'm going to call it, but really it just made a measured move of the highs and the lows. So these are the overnight lows, and what happened is we had this opening price, and prices just made a measured move up. So that the opening price was basically the midline, and then if you take that range and draw a measured move, it comes down here, and you can see we went a little further than that, but we practically had a perfect measured move. So that's how I saw it, and let's get into these trades. So 5 o'clock comes in somewhere around here, and this was just too congested for me. Um, I think I was looking at this as like the range, yeah, for the time being. So that does look like a range, and you're just right at that midline, and you don't know if it looks like we're going to go lower. So you might consider this one. Um, Especially if you draw it like that, you might consider that. But it just looks too congested, and you're going into well, you wouldn't have had that as the midline, but you're going into a level of support for sure. So just not the greatest. I just thought it was better to just wait. And then we come up here, and you get a first entry, failed second entry. But in this range, you're going long into the midline. Just not an ideal setup. Let me mark it as aggressive. But you got all these. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 inside bars. Just not a great setup. And then we just rock it on up. We go above. This was the overnight high, so we go above that. So I was hoping that we might have an uptrend day, but you can see the trend up just didn't continue it, and it weakened a lot. And when it broke through the EMA, looked like the trend up was over. So in here we're just chopping around. You don't get a higher low to go long, or else I would say take it. And then we come up here, and you just reverse. You get a first entry, failed second entry. That doesn't trigger. And then we get a higher high right here. So you can't take that for anything. And then I drew a channel of these highs, and it didn't really quite fit on this low. If you put it on this low, well, you get an overshoot right there. So that could be it. That looks like the midline, as you can see. And we get an overshoot right here. We hit that midline. You probably, well, not you probably, you could have had, if you drew these highs and you see it lines up perfectly with the opening price, almost perfectly, then I think you should definitely keep that in mind. That's going to be a level of support. And just an area to keep in mind and maybe stay out of, unless there's a clear setup, and wait for it to go to the lows. And you can see we have a first entry. It bounces. We get a first entry, second entry, and the signal bar is no good. And it traps those people who jumped in too early. And you can see that. So this third entry works. So you might take this lower high. Only problem, and only problem with this is that you're going long into this level of support. So it's a bit risky, but there's reasons to like that. Come down here. And it's also, if you realize that this is the midline and we're probably going to try and test these lows or these lows, then you've spotted the trap, and I think you might want to take that. You get a first entry, second entry that unfortunately is not, doesn't make it a new high, so we can't take that. And we have this trend channel. It's off the trend channel. We hit these lows. You're not really sure yet if these are the lows. So, I mean, you might have, and that looks like that could be a channel. But if you bring it back down here, well, you get this double bottom, first entry, second entry. And at this point, I'd probably be thinking that we're going to test these lows. So I like that. Not the greatest setup because this looks like a valid channel to me, but you could have, let's see. Yeah, because if you draw it like that, that'd be right off the trend channel. So I do like this, but it's just off the EMA. You can see we don't make it to the lows. We come back, we bounce, and we don't make it to the lows again. And at that point, anything right here would be risky. We don't get a setup anyway. But look at this. I think this is probably a very good trap. You can see you get a first entry, second entry, and it's not a good setup. And really, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inside bars all stacked up. And so then you get this new high, a very bearish signal bar, and they probably trapped a bunch of people who are coming in too early. And then it breaks out with the trend, and it breaks out counter trend, maybe fooling the longs thinking we're going to make another leg up. And then you get a first entry, failed second entry. So, oh, that's actually a second entry as well. So if you see all this, I think this is probably red. If you see all that, I think you have to take that. That's a second entry short. It's a failed second entry long. They just trapped all these shorts going short too early. And we haven't made a new low yet. And we haven't tested these overnight lows. So I like that. And you can see it just, a lot of people like that. Big move down. You can see this is like a range right here. I was actually looking at this because you do get you get some tests right there. You make that price level, test it once, and it's testing it a bunch of times in here. So you get a second entry short that doesn't trigger, and then it tests that high again and fails. You might drop a limit order in here, but I think that's too risky, so I didn't even mark that. We come down a little further, and you have this greater channel working down that I drew off these two highs. But then, obviously, we had this steep pink channel down, and then we have this channel down. So I didn't mark this because of the pink channel. You wouldn't have had the pink channel drawn until this swing. But look at, we have like a double, triple, quadruple test, or maybe a triple test right here. So with that bearish bar, and we're now below the overnight, well below the overnight lows, and the bias is clearly down, you might take that. But if you don't take that and you're patient, you get a first entry, failed second entry long off of that pink channel. In a strong downtrend. I like that. Off the pink channel, off the EMA. And if you don't take that, we come up short of the channel right here. But technically, even though this looks like more like a double bottom to me, this is a first entry, second entry off that larger channel. So you might take that. I just don't like, it just doesn't look like great setup. This all looks like one leg to me. And you can see we have this, we're just chopping on both sides of the EMA here, correcting. And then we get an overshoot. And you might consider this lower high, but that's nothing. No, not really much of a setup. This is a second entry, so I'm sure Okay, they didn't trap anyone. So when it goes sideways like that, I'd be a little, um, I just wouldn't want to take anything. But this lower high, you might take that. Yeah, that actually, I kind of like that. But anyway, come up here, first entry, second entry, and it's an overshoot. And then, so you might take this too. And I like that because I wouldn't have had my trend channel drawn like that by that point. I would have it drawn like this. And, ooh, that's a little, yeah, that's aggressive because it looks like it's going into the bottom of the channel. But with this greater channel, it also looks like it could probably trap a lot of longs because it looks like these longs, yeah, that looks really good. So that looks like a really nice trap because, yep, and look, they got those people right there. They got those people on a failure. That might be a trap for shorts. 60, 59, 75. Hold up, 61. You enter at 61, and look at that. That's a perfect scalp. So I just don't like. You saw the trend channel, the short-term trend channel I drew. That's why I don't like these. It's not off the trend channel, and you're going short into a level of support. So yeah, and you can see that they trap those people who are going for shorter moves. But maybe you go and put your stop above here. I don't know. I don't know what people are doing. New high, first entry, failed second entry, but at this point you're going into this level of support. So I'm not too crazy about that. Huge signal bar. Then you get this lower high. You might think about that because of this, all the people going long off of this level of support with plenty of room back to the EMA. And this is technically a second entry short. But I like this one better because it closes below the trend channel and it looks like a trap. And now we have further confirmation of this short-term trend channel. But we come down here, we find support. Let's take a look at the greater context so we know we're not quite at that measured move. I see this range right here. And you can see I just drew it off these two legs up, this low and these highs. And so that I actually meant to mark this. I actually like that one. This is a first entry, second entry short, room back to the EMA. I think when this one finishes like that, I'm not too crazy about it. But then right after that, when this one finishes bearish, I like that. That ends up being a good move. And now we're just really chopping around along that midline. We come up here, very bearish signal bar, but it looks like a double bottom here, so the count resets. But you can see the floor falls out. We're too far from the EMA here, but you can see a channel down. We come down, hit that measured move, go a little further. We come up here, first entry, second entry short. And when that doesn't really go lower, it starts to look like a range. So this one I marked as red, but I think with that context, it's just it closes beneath the EMA this time, whereas this one didn't. And this one's actually technically a second entry short, so I like it. But yeah, it looks like a range. So now we're going into that support. First entry, second entry. Oh, I'm gonna have to. I like this one too. It's just that the thing with this one is that we just made a double test this measured move area. So I don't know, but I would probably take that with how consistent this is bouncing off those highs. I would take that. I like that. I'm marking it green, but I think that might be red. and that brings you into the close. This is along the midline. You don't want to take any of this. So that's what I saw for today. Let's take a look at this one last time. Hope everyone had a great day. I don't think I'll be back tomorrow. I'm doing something all day, but if not tomorrow, I'll be back Thursday.